And we're live.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for hopping on here and learning a little bit more about earlier intervention and speech therapy. My name is Courtney Klinger. I'm one of the directors of the outpatient clinics at TheraPlay. TheraPlay, as you know, we have 14 locations right here in the direct Philadelphia region. We also have locations as well in our Fleming market, in our CTC market as well in Virginia, and also in our Pittsburgh area for positive steps therapy. So I'm also a speech therapist as well, in addition to my role as director. And we have Jenny here, so I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I am Jenny Ninus. I'm a speech therapist solely doing early intervention. I work for Positive Steps Therapy, which is in the TheraPlay family of companies in Western Pennsylvania. I have a lot of experience in early intervention, and that's kind of what I'm focusing on now as I'm raising my own little ones at home. So it's a passion area of mine. It's a great resource. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about it today.
So first feel free to ask questions as you guys may have them. But first we're going to talk a little bit about milestones that we look for children, particularly in the birth to 5 range. When we think about early intervention, it really includes that a time before school age. We also have separated out a birth to 3 model, and we have a 3 to 5 program model, specifically in the state of Pennsylvania as well. So when we're thinking about the milestones, one of the first time we see children and concerns for speech language, we often see it around that 2-year marker when the child may go for a well visit and your child may not be saying words, and that's okay. But we also want to look for some indications prior to that 2-year-old marker of where we want children to start communicating. We really want to start seeing some of what we call those pre-linguistic skills, some of those play skills really kind of develop. They will, around that 12-month marker, we really want to start seeing them have some close to word approximations. As we see kids, they're not going to be clear words, and you're going to have to piece together in your mind what you think are the words. And I always tell parents, if you think you heard it, go with it. Just start putting words in their head that you think they may have started saying. So that babbling is really going to start before that 1-year marker. And then from that 1-year marker to about that 18-year-old marker, you're going to start hear things that you think might be words, and that's when you really want to kind of go with it. Them say a word like cookie, and it comes out a tootsie, and that's okay. That's certainly something that we expect during that time period. What we really kind of say is that at that 19 to 24 month marker, we really don't expect them to be any more than 25% to 50% intelligible for the words that they're producing and the words that they're putting together at that point in time. Then we also are looking at some other language skills that they have during that time. So, they might start to use some pronouns such as I around that 12-month marker, but that also may not fully develop until they're closer to that 2-year marker where they're starting to use I or refer to different objects as it. When we get then close to that 2-year marker is really when we want them to start combining 2 words together. And that's oftentimes why we see at that time that children are referred to services. Really, if you don't see them start doing some of those word approximations, by that 18-month marker, I would really start to look at some speech therapy services. Jenny will talk about the difference a little bit between the early intervention model and accessing services. I can talk a little bit about the outpatient model as well. But during that time, you really want to start to get them tones. We want them to start understanding some language. We have what we kind of talked about a lot is that expressive language, using the words. Receptive language also is developing during that time. And children might have strong receptive language, but not have strong expressive language. But it still is an indication that they might need some speech therapy. So some milestones we look for even prior to that point in time is when, before the age of 24 months, that 2-year marker, we want them to start asking some yes or using some yes nos to answer some questions. That's receptively showing that they understand what that concept means. We want them to be able to also start understanding some simple directions for get shoes. We can't add more language in it than that. We really need to keep it short and sweet for them, but start being able to understand some of those words. It really shows that they are starting to process the language that is presented to them. We need them to process that language that's presented to them before they really start to use any of that language that's presented to them. We want them to be responding to that word no. If we don't see that response to the word no, and they're not really understanding what that word means, then we need to start looking at providing some speech therapy services so we can help them get that understanding of what some of those words are meaning as well. We always get questioned about the vocabulary milestones that kids should be using and how many words should my kid have by this age. And that there's such a huge range of word milestones that we would expect for a child. I'll give you some rough numbers, but I also don't want parents to kind of be stuck on that number. If my child doesn't have that exact number by this age, it's a concern. If they're not even close to that number, it would be a concern, and we need to really look at providing services, but that's not the end all be all if they don't have that exact number. But really by the 18-month marker, we would want to see around the 50 word approximations. And I say approximation because if you think you heard it, you probably heard it. It was some loose term of that. But we really want to see about around in that age of 50. And then once they get closer to that 2-year-old marker, we want to kind of see about 200 words there. And again, it could be single words. We want to really kind of start to see some of those words combined around that time. And then as they can continue to progress up to 3-year-olds, their 3-year-old age, their words are really going to expand. So we are getting close to 400 words at that time. And there are different words that they're using for different pragmatic reasons. And when we say pragmatic reasons, it might be they're using words to make requests. They're using words to protest and say, no, I don't want that. Or they're using words to just comment and say what they see in their environment. And that we're really going to see more of that around the 3-year-old marker. Then once we get up to 4-year-old, they're just going to continue to expand. They're going to be closer to 1,500, right under that 2,000 marker. And at that point in time, nobody's counting the words that they are doing. So we don't expect you to kind of count those words at that time. So that was a lot. Jenny, I'll kind of let you talk a little bit about, accessing services and what that looks like.
Perfect. And I also wanted to kind of just touch on really quickly some strategies, things that we could try before we're having to get to that point of accessing. Because I think as a parent, you are always wanting what's best for your child, and kind of just knowing what to do before you even get to that point, I think is helpful. So like Courtney was saying, there's a lot that goes into our language. The first step is always going to be understanding. Like, are we understanding what is said to us? So that's the first thing that I would make sure that we're tackling, and making sure that our children are able to understand the language that we're presenting them. Starting with things as simple as items that they're interacting with, favorite toys, people in the home, pets if you have pets, naming them and seeing if they're gazing towards the thing that we're mentioning. A lot of little ones at this age will respond with a gesture and show us that they're understanding, but they might not have a word for it yet. So the first step is always going to be showing understanding. And then the next step is going to be, let's work on a word or a way to tell me about that thing. So after we kind of look through the ability to understand and the receptive language, that's where we're going to pair in some simple, like Courtney said, word approximations. I'm not expecting a 1-year-old to come out and say bubble perfectly. That's not realistic. When we haven't spoken before, we've never said this word, it's not going to come out pretty. So approximations are absolutely counted towards words if they're consistent and they're functional and you know what they're saying. And they can do that to get their needs met. That's perfect. That's a word. So add that to your list of words as you're keeping track. Words that are easier are going to be words that have simpler combinations, shorter sounds. So animal sounds are perfect for beginning to imitate. Vehicle sounds, environmental sounds, boom, oh no, all of those things are going to come before words. So if you feel like you've been modeling and your child is just not quite picking up on the words that you're modeling, back down to that sound level. Let's try some animal sounds and environmental sounds, reaction sounds, I call them. When we're on the swing, instead of saying more swing, please, we can say wee each time and try to get them to imitate some simple, approximations of a simple sound. That'll be the first thing that we're going to work on. And then once they get that, then we can work on more specifically modeling that word. Like Courtney had said, we want to narrate and talk about what we're doing. We want to use language as we typically would, but when we go to get that imitation, we want to break it down to a simpler level so your child knows what the target will be. So if I'm talking about the swing and how fun it is, the swing is so fun, I want to swing more, we can go back down to the simple word of more or more swing, and try to break it down to like a tangible level where they know this is what they want me to try or say. Or go works for a lot of things. I think that's a great action word. As we're building our language, we want to think about the types of words that we're modeling. A lot of times we focus on nouns, things that we interact with, people's names, pets' names, toys. And when we get to the point where we're trying to put words together, if we only have nouns, it gets a little bit tricky. So we want to make sure that we're modeling quality, a variety of quality words. So when we start, nouns are perfect for getting those simple needs met and then building in those action words. So instead of just cookie, like we had talked about, or tutti, we want to put action with it. Eat cookie, bite cookie, break cookie, more cookie. We're going to give them some different ways to tell us two words together, what that looks like. So once we kind of get that ball rolling, they're trying some words, we want to kind of model simple 2-word phrases and expand. Ways to expand: using actions, using descriptors, so big or small, wet or dry, more or all done, tacked on to other things. Greetings are a great way to expand. So a lot of little ones will wave initially, and then we work on the hi and the bye, and then we might put a person's name with that, and we can kind of slowly expand one little building block at a time. A lot of times when our kiddos start talking, we want to kind of jump to sentences and whole requests, but we want to really focus on quality of the interaction and the ability to communicate a variety of different things at that stage. So I think that's kind of where I would start with the communication, and keeping in mind there's a lot of different types of communication. We think about words. When we think about speech therapy, we think about talking and how clear it is and what they're saying. Gestures are super powerful, and I think the more we can encourage those gestures and encourage them to use gestures as a way to communicate and get their needs met, that's going to decrease frustration immensely. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so it's frustration city over here. And you can imagine how frustrating that is for a little body to know, I know exactly what I want, I just don't know how to tell you. So using gestures, using ways to get their needs met, opening a book with food items on it. If they don't have a word for it yet, you could show them, hey, which one do you want today? Do you want a banana or grapes? You can use pictures, you can use pointing, you can use gestures or signs. There's a lot of different ways to kind of help decrease that frustration early on. If you feel like you've done all of this and things are just not kind of clicking, there are options for you. And like Courtney said, early intervention is exceptionally wonderful. And I'm biased because I work in early intervention, but I think that starting services earlier is better. Let's get the ball rolling, get some things in order. So before we're hitting that school age, we already have some things done and we could maybe be done with all of this. We don't have to worry about it anymore. When we look at early intervention, in terms of the early intervention program, you can go on to a website. You can do like through the CDC, there's referrals. I was just kind of typing around this morning, just like if I were a parent and I didn't know anything about this, searching early intervention in the state that you're in. Early intervention in Pennsylvania is on like the Department of Education site. And there's ways you can call, you can email, you can do an online request. A lot of times parents will wait until they speak to their doctor, which is your decision if you want to talk to your doctor first and make sure you are justified in that referral. That's totally your decision. But you can also self-refer. You can go onto that site and sign up yourself if you are concerned. If maybe at the 18-month appointment, like Courtney said, that's a prime time. If the doctor says, let's wait till 2, but in your gut, you feel like that is too long to wait, make that referral yourself. You don't have to wait until the doctor gives you the go ahead. Early intervention program looks like very natural setting based services. So we come to your home, we do our sessions in home. Post pandemic, it's looking kind of different, but we have the option to do tele-intervention. We have the option to do in-home visits. I have several families that do outside park play and I meet them there. So it's really whatever your therapist and you decide works. By getting that referral process started online, you can do that. And then you do have to, the way that it works in our program is you have to show a 25% delay or greater to qualify. So a lot of kiddos, they might be a little bit behind, but maybe not at that 25% delay mark. So that's where families are like, now what? I don't know what to do. And that's where kind of Courtney will tell you a little bit about like the options in terms of the outpatient world.
So outpatient, one of the common misconceptions is that you can't access both services at the same time. Kind of as Jenny was talking about, you can. And what Jenny was talking about specifically is hopefully by the age of school, some of these things can be tackled and we don't need to continue services into the school. So the earlier the better. And if you can manage it to get both types of services, I think that's also important and beneficial for a child. We will work with the early intervention therapist. The early intervention therapist will work with the outpatient therapist as well to make sure we are meeting the child's needs and where the child needs to progress to. So first things first, that's something that you can access at the same time for your child. Same thing when they progress into school, you can also access school services and outpatient services at the same time as well in the state of Pennsylvania. So that's just an important thing to note. Outpatient, similar to early intervention, you can go to our website and you can self-referral and you can call up our therapy services to state your concerns, and our front desk staff members will get you connected with an evaluating therapist for the therapy that you have concern with. Specifically in this case, if it is speech therapy and a concern with speech, they will get you connected with the speech therapist. We will need a prescription from your doctor. Can call up your doctor and ask them for a prescription for our services as well. We can do the evaluation and then we can get that prescription after the evaluation is completed based on the therapist's recommendation as well. So we will need that to get started for services and to continue with the progression of services. Different than early intervention, the outpatient therapist will teach you the strategies and have you be hands-on as well. But the outpatient services, you're bringing them to a location. So not as natural as an environment of early intervention services as well. And there's pros and cons to both options for the child. And we find that therapists or children do really well in both of those settings for different reasons. And the goal is that whatever they learn in each of the settings with different therapists, they will cross over to that other therapist. What we're also teaching the children is that what they use with Miss Jenny and they learn with Miss Jenny, the same expectation is when they're with us in outpatient as well. And so they're learning to use, whether it's their gestures, their verbal communication, they're learning to use that across different settings to get their different communication needs met. And that's the basis of speech. That's the basis of language and conversation that we want for our children, for them to use it with a variety of different people across a variety of different settings for a variety of different purposes. So that's one really, really important thing that we want our children to be able to do. So just, you can call our front desk and they will get you connected and get you set up with an evaluations. We are insurance based, so we will go through your insurance. If you have a primary and a secondary insurance, we will use those. If we accept both of those insurances, we will use those insurances as well. Our front desk can guide you a little bit more on what that looks like for your specific insurance, but we also encourage you to verify your own insurance benefits so you know what the benefit is for your insurance company as well, and how many visits you're allowed to have in the outpatient setting. So that's just a little bit about how to access the services.
Absolutely.
Jenny, I don't know if you, go ahead.
And I forgot to mention, early intervention in particular is through the state. And so it's not, and it's not necessarily a cost to the families. But like Courtney said, I think I've worked with a lot of different families, and I think the combination, having both options is wonderful because you get that carryover. The approach is a little bit different in early intervention. We're really working on that coaching model, kind of tackling what you're already doing and then building onto that. And so it's very like child-led and parent-led, and the therapist is there to support what's already happening and give some suggestions and encourage you to kind of work through things in a new way. Whereas that outpatient setting is going to be a lot of direct intervention and giving you those strategies to practice and work on at home. So I feel like if you are in that boat and you are looking into one or the other or both, encouraging your therapist to communicate with each other is so important. Making a team approach. I think the more people involved, the better. And the more that you can make sure that everyone is communicating and on the same page, that's best case scenario for sure.
As Jenny was talking about, Jason, I don't know if there's any questions coming in, but just let us know if there are, but I'll kind of keep talking as we see if anybody has additional questions. But
yeah, there's not any questions in the comment section now, but this would definitely be a good time for anybody that's tuned in to drop some questions in the comment section.
Awesome. I'll keep talking. As Jenny was talking a little bit about the strategies, and she was talking so much about just the modeling of language. That is so, so important. As somebody involved in the children's life, you need to model that language. And the best thing you can be doing is modeling that language. A strategy I always like to use with a family too, we want to be able to meet all of our kids' needs. But when it comes to language, sometimes you need to back off on automatically meeting their needs and let them try some type of nonverbal or verbal communication. So, we call it kind of sabotaging the environment, setting it up so that they have the opportunity to communicate. And you can see what they do. Again, as Jenny was talking with her little ones, frustration city, and you might get a little bit frustration city, don't stop yourself and give what they need before it's too crazy of a city. But try to sabotage the environment to give them an opportunity to communicate. A simple thing I've always told the parents I've worked with is put things in bags, put them in clear Ziploc bags. The child can see the item in there so that they know that's what they want, but maybe they can't get it open. So they have to indicate some way to you non-verbally or verbally that they need this bag open. It might just come out if they're verbal and starting to get some of those, it might come out as a oh, and that might be open. Great, let's go. Open the bag, let's get the dinosaurs out, let's get the cars out, whatever it may be, let's get that out of the bag and play with it. Because naturally in itself, that is the reinforcement for that child. So for them to get that toy and play with that toy is naturally reinforcing. I also say too is when you're giving them a snack, don't give the whole bag. Don't give 5 cookies at once or whatever it is, little cookies hopefully, but don't give them all at once. Give them one and then wait. See if they'll then ask for more, or it might be ma for more, or it might be cook tea, as we talked about. It might be something, but you're setting up the environment so that they have the opportunity to communicate. So many parents are so great at meeting their child's needs, but when it comes to language, don't do such a great job there. Back off a little bit and don't meet those needs as easily for the children.
And that's one of the first questions I always ask families is, how are they telling you they need a drink?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not, because there's always a drink available. I'm like, okay, what if you didn't fill it up? What would happen? So that's that coaching model, like having the parents reflect on like, what is it that would happen? So yeah, like she said, you're not neglecting them. You're just kind of sabotaging and creating an opportunity. The more opportunities we have, the more willing and able kids are going to be to communicate those needs. You had mentioned earlier, Courtney, about play and how like play skills are so important to communication. That's where a lot of our modeling is going to come from too. Like if you have a target word you want them to use, put it into play. Have that target, bombard them with it when you're playing. So if the word is open, you want them to work on open the snack or open the door. Maybe you're playing with a box and every time you open it, you really emphasize that word and you put things in it, you open and you take things out, you do one at a time. Playing with that word 15 times during play rather than just waiting for that one opportunity to open the bag. So when in doubt, put it to practice in play. And that's going to be a really great way to get lots of repetition and expectations of what you want from them. For sure.
Jason, I didn't know if there's any questions that had come through.
Yeah, I don't see any questions right now, but I would welcome anybody that either views this video later on our Facebook page. As soon as the Facebook Live ends, this video will get posted to our Facebook page. If you have any questions at all, go ahead and leave them in the comments section, and Jenny and Courtney will circle back to you. But if there's nothing else, I'd really like to thank both Jenny and Courtney for helping us round out this series on early intervention. This is very interesting. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.